Welcome back to another Alpha Strike replay video. We're continuing our series on Aerospace for BattleTech, and in this one we're going to talk about control rolls.
Control rolls, swooshing.
So we've mentioned that control rolls appear quite a bit.
Yeah, we've said the words control roll like 900 times so far recording these, so let's find out what it actually is. Oh dear.
It's considered a piloting
it's basically a piloting skill check.
It is a piloting skill check. That's what they call it, control rolls.
They had to change the name to make it legally distinct from the mechs. That's, I guess.
I know. He's making that up.
I'm making that up. There's a bunch of situations where you need to make control rolls. We've gone through quite a lot of them, but if you have a look on page 93 of Total Warfare, bing, there's the control roll table. So the control roll table actually lists a bunch of situations where you need to make a control roll. So there you go. I mean, they're there. You're exceeding normal operational ceiling, so things like conventional fighters trying to go up in above level 1 atmosphere.
Yeah, that's right.
Control roll.
Yeah.
Atmospheric re-entry, so when you hit that interface layer that we talked about before, control roll. Rolling more than once in a turn. Yeah, okay.
That's in the main space.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
So you have to make a control roll. Use thrust in excess of your current SI rating. Control roll. Unit with velocity over 2 times safe thrust in an atmosphere hex. So that is... that's so your cheater with a velocity of 24 over 24 will have to make a control roll in atmosphere, and that includes ground low altitude and any atmospheric row of high altitude. Okay, so if you're coming in fast, you're stuffing yourself up. Don't do it. If you stall, so if your forward velocity for an Aerodyne unit reaches 0, then you'll stall. You have to make a control roll. Descending more than 3 altitudes in a single turn, control roll. And then if you take damage to your avionics, a critical hit, avionics, control are both control rolls, and sustaining damage while in atmosphere is a control roll.
Every 20 points. It's
got sustaining damage.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so the 20...
I assume that's
every
20 points, but
for every 20 points, it's a +1. It's a +1 and it's a check. So you're doing lots and lots of checks.
Yeah. You got a bunch of modifiers listed there as well. Can have a look at those. But what you're basically doing is if you hit one of those situations, you have to make the roll with the modifiers. We've already gone through like the special maneuvers we did last time, all have their own separate modifier. But then if you've got, say, pilot and crew damaged, you're adding another 1 per box ticked off.
Yeah.
Okay, so your maneuvers can get really difficult really quickly. Atmospheric operations is just a +2 automatically. That's insane. That's actually insane.
Yeah.
So what happens if you fail? If you pass, you do whatever it is you were planning on doing that caused you to do this. If you fail, you are considered out of control. Okay? If you are out of control, you cannot spend thrust points. You cannot change velocity or facing and must continue on your present heading, moving the appropriate number of hexes in a straight line for your velocity. You've got a risk for running into other units
as you go through the other hexes.
Yeah. So if you're moving forward out of control and you go through a hex with another unit in it, friendly or enemy.
Yeah, anyone.
You've got a chance to hit them. If they still have, this is like the skidding rules.
Yes, essentially the same thing for ground units.
If they haven't spent any thrust yet, if they haven't moved yet, then they're able to spend I think they have to spend all their thrust points to get out of the way. Yeah, so if you determine if there's multiples, you have to determine which. You roll to see if you're going to hit them. If you actually hit them, but they haven't moved yet and they have at least 1 thrust point, the controlling player can attempt to avoid. You have to make a control roll. If successful, the unit avoids the collision but expends all its available thrust points in getting out of the way. So, yeah, if you've got your 12 thrust cheetah in the way, he has to spend all 12 of those to move out. So, yeah, that's not good.
No.
Out of control units suffer a +2 modifier on 2 hit numbers, and it cannot attempt to land, launch, or recover fighters or dock with other units. We'll go into those later on.
Yeah.
If an out of control unit attempts to re-enter the atmosphere, it takes damage, which we already went into, and it's bad.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's really bad. You are always going to be out of control for at least one full turn. Okay, no matter when your control roll happens, and no matter like what happens afterwards, you can't regain control of your fighter until the end of the next turn. It's the end phase of each turn after the turn in which the unit went out of control.
That's right.
So you're always going to be out of control for at least one turn.
So just like your pilot's passing out or whatever it is,
Yeah.
you know.
It's
you
one
can't get a roll on it.
whole turns. You've got a whole movement phase, a whole weapon phase, and a whole heat phase of everything, plus whatever you miss out on the turn you actually go out of control on. So if you're at like maximum thrust with this cheetah and you go out of control at the beginning of your turn for some reason, then you're flying forward at like 24 hexes per turn for 2 turns, and there's nothing you can do about it. So
other than the manual slowing down that it does, so
yeah,
you can stay airborne.
Well, that's it.
Enough.
I mean, if you're in space, you're just going to keep going until you turn off the board.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're low altitude, you're going to go down very, very quickly. Yeah, you probably hit. Oh, no, you don't. No. You wouldn't hit ground, but you'll slow down quite a bit. Well, that's not bad. But if you're in space, you're just going to go off the edge of the board.
Yeah, and you're effectively out of the scenario.
So when a control roll fails by a margin of 5 or more points, or when indicated by critical hits or heat effects, which some of them will say you have to perform a certain number of random movement checks.
Yeah.
A unit might suffer random movement in its next movement phase. For each point of velocity, roll 1d6 instead of moving the unit forward, and compare the result to the random movement table, which is up there on page 93 as well. For each point of velocity, roll 1d6 instead of moving the unit forward, and compare the result to that, and then carry out the indicated movement. This occurs regardless of what type the unit is out of control, or whether the unit is operating on the space map, high altitude map, or low altitude map. You're going to have trouble. And again, if you're using the aerospace units on ground map sheets, you have to multiply that table by 8. So those where you've got a 3 to 4 where it says forward 1 hex, if you're using actual ground combat maps, that's forward 8 hexes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not good.
But again, yeah, like a smart pilot's gonna have enough height, allowing for allowing for these sorts of things, But yeah, you could get caught.
Your problem comes.
Get caught.
Your problem comes with the 1, 2, and 5 and 6, where you actually have to take a turn.
Yeah.
So, controlling players should note the number of thrust points they normally spend to carry out each maneuver at the unit's current velocity, and apply the appropriate effects for high G maneuvers. Which means if you are doing max velocity with your cheetah and you have to turn 2 hex sides to the left, I'm going to look this up because this is just crazy. Let's say you're just doing your safe velocity of 12, right? You're having to spend 7 thrust points.
Oof.
7 thrust points per turn.
Well,
Which is 14
right.
if you get a 1 or a 6.
Yeah.
And that's over your safe thrust. So you're a high G maneuver and you have to, that's over your pilot thing as well, even assuming they haven't taken any damage, that's still 2 points higher than your pilots.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No. If you know you're going to be going in a straight line and not getting shot, the cheetah's great for getting where you need to go. But you've got practical limits of how fast you can sort of go and things like that in the combat.
See, the really bad stuff happens when you get to this. So, random movement allows units to execute maneuvers normally considered impossible for their class or velocity. For example, a unit with velocity 10 and only 5 thrust points making a 2 hex side turn. You wouldn't be able to do that with the rules, right? It's impossible. You can't do it, right? So in such cases, double the effective thrust point cost when calculating the effects for high G maneuvers.
Yeah.
So
that's gonna cripple dropships if you're not careful.
Yeah.
Really.
Even something like the
Fighters,
Shiloh.
yeah, but dropships are under a lot of pressure from that.
Yeah. Your unit experience in random movement may exceed its maximum thrust for purposes of calculating these effects. So, yeah, they've got a little example there on page 93 as well. So, Simon makes a control roll for his Shiloh fighter and fails by a margin of 6, meaning the unit undergoes random movement. Fighter has a velocity of 4, must make 4 rolls on the random movement table. First result is a 3, moves forward 1 hex. Gets a 4, moves forward another hex. Third result is a 6, which means the fighter moves forward 1 hex, then turns right 2 hex sides, a maneuver that normally costs 4. The final result is a 5, the unit moves forward 1 hex and turns another hex side right, which would normally cost 2. The Shiloh has a safe structural integrity of 6, and so neither of the maneuvers exceeds the restrictions for high G maneuvers.
So that pilot got quite lucky.
So
and it is a nice fighter anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So you're adding up the things that you would do, working out the thrust point, and if you don't have that, then you have to double everything.
Yeah.
Got lucky there and went under. But
But again, there's a safe speed, a safe velocity for engaging and things like that.
Yeah.
In case something goes wrong and you need to try and recover.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
All of your control rolls get +1 if you're above your safe thrust. So if your cheetah goes above 12 or if your Shiloh goes above 6, you get a +1 automatically to every control roll you make. Which is, these things are hard to keep in the air without a decent pilot.
Yeah,
Seriously.
Yeah, because you've got stacking of certain things as well. If it makes you do extra rolls, that's terrible. Yeah. Pilots are... You need them. You need really, really, really good pilots.
I would seriously consider like taking my gunnery to like a 5 and just dropping my piloting as low as possible. If you're not using the rule of 2, if you're using the rule of 2, you've got to like really finagle that BV and try and get something good.
Yeah.
Because you need that. Yeah. Go with a 4-2 or maybe even a 2-0. I think is probably a decent move.
Yeah, it's like I was looking at the numbers, like anything that's like higher than a 3 would just be... As a pilot,
you're going to have problems no matter what you do.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of pluses.
It's pretty ridiculous. I was just going to have a look on master unit list here.
Pilot crew down. It says +1 per crossed off box as well,
Yeah. And see that's doubly important because you're getting a +1 for every one of those crossed off, and every one of those is reducing the amount of thrust you can spend.
Otherwise you're going to hurt your pilot.
Yeah, because if you spend more than 12 in a single turn with a full health, then you have to make a control roll. If you cross one of them off, you can only make 10. You cross another one off, you can only do 8.
Yeah.
Right, so and you get a +1, +2, right? So it just compounds.
Yeah.
You really need to be careful with your fighters.
You'll find that they'll probably... Yeah. Well, I don't know. They had like... if you're playing scenarios where you've got force withdrawal and things like that,
Yeah.
then they'll have... I think it does mention in there for aerospace stuff, and it's... Yeah. But once your pilot starts taking hits, you can't risk it. You just got to leave.
Why did I go to Battle Mix? Jeez, Tarron. What have I got there? I've got the F10. Okay. So the F10 is an interceptor. I'll go through the things later on if you guys reckon you'll want to see that. So A 4.5, which is standard, is 448.
Okay.
You can get a 4.2 for 564. So it's a little over 100 more. You can get a 0.0 for 1,084. But he's got a small laser and 2 medium lasers. That's it. That's all he's got. And not very much armor. So you could get...
What's a 2.2?
2.2 is 788.
See, here's the thing, isn't it? It's like,
But
am I better off with the ground unit?
You can get a 3.1 for 707. So you can save yourself 70 points there. You can save yourself 81 points if you go with a 3.1 instead of a 2.2. So that one extra point of gunnery lets you drop a point of piloting skill, and you're starting with a 1 base when you're doing all these weird rolls.
Yeah.
So that's... I'd take it.
So we know. So we're pretty safe to say that we've established that you need to be spending some BV on a good pilot per fighter or per airborne unit that you've got. So they are going to be inherently more expensive, already. So they've got a base pilot BV, but you just wouldn't take it.
You would need
end up paying premium.
Yeah, you would need to improve that piloting. If you're going to take aerospace seriously, you would need to improve that piloting. If you're doing homebrew rules, if you're just doing like single loops backwards and forwards to do strafing runs because you're the only one that took an aerospace fighter, then I'd just go with like a 4.4 or a 4.3 or something like that, or maybe even a 2.3. But if you are taking aerospace seriously and you want to do this properly, then you need to focus on your piloting skill, because it is going to be important. It's going to be really important.
Yeah.
I keep coming back to this one, but Caddy Ray said that they play with like 40,000 BV or something. Even with that, you wouldn't want to take more than like a couple of lances of aerospace fighters. If you're not doing like an actual space battle, you take like maybe a lance of aerospace fighters. If that, make them all like, you could take a lance of cheetahs for like air cover, but it'd still cost you 4,000-ish points, I reckon, out of your 40,000.
Then I would take 40,000 of just aircraft and see what happens. I mean, there it is, an all Air Force versus an all ground, and see, does...
Well, I take half a dozen blackjacks with LBXs and just...
If you don't know what's coming, though. But that's, again, we're adding now another element, and we mentioned this before, from a strategic point of view to your games of BattleTech, and you've really... If you ignore fighters, they will murder you.
Yeah.
They can do it.
And that's, if you want to get into like deep BattleTech, then Total Warfare is where you go.
Yeah.
Right? I think we did a thing with like different books you should buy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we did that a while ago, so I've forgotten about it. But
probably do an update.
Number one on my list would be Total Warfare, no matter what you're into. Yeah. Total Warfare. Because yes, the BattleTech mech manual will give you battle mech stuff like out the wing wang. It's got everything mech related, so it's really good. If you want combined arms, Total Warfare.
Yeah.
Every single time. Yeah. First buy every time.
It is good.
But yeah, it's just, it's the level you want to take it to. It's where you want to put your like points. So if you play a game where you don't know what each other is taking, which is entirely possible. We only do this so we've got extra content. The force reveals are quite fun, I think. You sit down in front of the camera and reveal what forces you're taking into the battle. But you can technically, and should, just go in with your force and don't tell anybody what it is and play the game. See what happens. I've got an idea for that.
It's going to get harder now because we've added all these other elements.
Yeah.
It's just...
It's madness. Yeah.
All right.
But anyway, that's control rolls.
That's control rolls. So we're obviously, coming up in the series, we're going to be talking about the actual combat side of things.
Yep.
And Tarron and I will also be doing basically a 1v1 dogfight in space. So you'll be able to see how everything's
how the combat works
and see how many combat rolls control roles we've got to do.
We might have to do like a combat in space and then a combat in low altitude. So we might have to do two short battle reports.
We'll see how how it goes in the space one.
We'll see what we do. We may even pimp out a plane.
Oh, I do want to see what we can come up with.
I wouldn't mind. I made a really cool one and then I've forgotten what it was.
That's all right.
Yeah. All good.
All right. Thank you, Tarron.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for supporting us. But this is the time. Hit the bell. Be a subscriber.
All that jazz.
Because we want to let you know when our new videos drop.
Yeah.
Things like that. So.
Yeah. This has gotten a little bit dense, but hopefully you've stuck with us.
It's all good. All right, everyone.
All good.
Take care.
Bye,
Goodbye.
guys.